Hello there, welcome to episode 95 of Never Mind the Bullens. It's your bite-sized Everton podcast and vodcast. I'm a slightly hoarse Mike Peters, which seems appropriate given that today is Grand National Day. In fact, as I record this, they're about to run the race. But the reason I'm slightly hoarse is because of all the shouting and at Goodison this afternoon with that victory over Manchester United. And I mean, you know, I think priceless might not really be overstating it. Massive, particularly in the context of obviously what's happened over the on Wednesday night and the losing the last two, and obviously the defeat against Crystal Palace, particularly the game against Wednesday night, and how utterly sort of battle weary the players looked, and how, you know, disconsolate they were at the final whistle, and the sort of the ramifications of that result, which we studied in depth in episode 94. And you know, today there was clearly palpable tension around the ground from the get-go. Again, the programme notes from Seamus Coleman and Frank Lampard was saying, you know, we need you to get behind us. In fact, Seamus Coleman said, we've said this so many times, don't even need to say it again, really, was the sort of the gist of what he said. And it proved to be the case. I mean, it was a really very average game. I mean, Manchester United, that's probably the worst Manchester United display I have seen at Goodison Park in all of my years of watching United, watching some great United teams, but this is just a really dispirited, lacklustre sort of bunch of players who clearly aren't playing for the manager, are waiting. They've got the feet up already. They sort of know that they're not really going to finish in the top four, even though the mathematics are actually, I'll say, in their favour, but they're still very much in with the shout. But there was just no energy, no sort of impetus from them at any point in the game, and that was a very peculiar kind of dichotomy to the game, because whereas Everton were very sort of tentative and nervous early on, understandably, we sort of were able to play. We were never put under any real pressure, particularly in midfield. And, you know, the game wasn't taken to us. And we didn't really take the game to Manchester United that much, to be honest. Set up in a very kind of solid way. It was almost like an away performance in many respects, in the way that Everton set up and went, right, you come and break us down. And United just didn't have the wherewithal or the players in any semblance of form to be able to do that. So got the tactics were right. Must mention Fabian Delph. I thought he was absolutely magnificent. Went off with cramp after 80 minutes, but basically stick him in cryogenic storage, wrap him in cotton wool, do whatever we can to keep him fit, because it gave us such a solidity that we've been so lacking for so long this season alongside Alan. The only thing is that those two is that it's like playing a table football team where they're basically up looking at each other 10 yards either side, and the ball never goes sort of forward. Nobody's prepared to carry the ball of those two. But that's a minor quibble. The fundamental point is with them is that they were able to give the defence some protection. Fabian Delph won everything, tackled, you know, able to protect the back four, allowed Michael Keane to grow into the game a little bit, and Ben Godfrey. Keane was awful for the first half an hour, made a couple of very mistakes, was positionally suspect, but did get better as the game went on. Ben Godfrey's performance was absolutely totemic, particularly in the second half. When United were putting a lot of balls into the box and getting a lot of crosses in, he managed to get his head, the two of them between them managed to get their head to pretty much everything. Vitaly Mykolenko, I was critical of, but I did mitigate it by saying obviously he's come into a very difficult situation. But now, and obviously he's not really been in the team. You know, he's played an odd game here or there, or come on for 15, 20 minutes or what have you. Whereas now he's got a couple of starts. He's, you know, I think this is the third start on the run, and starting to get into the game, particularly in the league. And he got better as the game went on. And although we're not quite sure what his sort of capabilities as a footballer or as an attacking force, I think he was bought as a defensive left back, and his commitment to the cause and his commitment to tackles and getting his foot in when, you know, United were attacking was absolutely exemplary today. Ditto Seamus Coleman. He almost rolled back the years late on when he burst through slalom through the United midfield and then duffed a pass, really, which is a bit unfortunate. But every man jack of them, and I have to single out Alex Iwobi for special praise. I mean, he was absolutely outstanding. I mean, I commented to the lads around me in the Gladys Street at one stage during the second half, and I said, I've got no idea where he's playing. I said, because he's absolutely everywhere. So it wasn't a criticism. It was just he was that energetic with his performance. It was absolutely brilliant. And said that he is one player that has bucked the trend in terms of performance levels since Frank Lampard has come in, particularly over the last 3 or 4 games. I'll notwithstanding the mistake that he made last week to give the second goal to West Ham, that could happen to any player, to be fair to him. But his performance levels overall have been much, much better than Gary, who was sat behind me for the last 20 years, said that, this is his best ever game in an Everton shirt. Arguably, he might well be right, but fair play to him for the sort of the criticism that he has suffered and the really lousy form, and he has eventually, come good. And if we can harness 25 performance like that out of him a season, then we've got a real player. He put a lovely pass in for Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's the only player I would say today that did fall below the standards. Everybody else performed brilliantly. Anthony Gordon, Richarlison, the whole gamut of them performed brilliantly. Jordan Pickford was managing the game beautifully from goal in terms of trying to just kill the pace of it as best we could. But Dominic Calvert-Lewin didn't offer any sort of physical battle to Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof. And, Harry Maguire's form at the moment is shaky at best. Certainly his confidence levels are, at the very least, and there was an opportunity today for him to really kind of put that sort of physical shift in that we know we can do, and we've seen him do over the last 2.5 years, or previous 2.5 seasons, not necessarily this season, but he just doesn't do it. So he's either obviously still nowhere near fit, and I think I mentioned Alex Iwobi, he would put a pass in with about 10 or 15 minutes to go. Lovely ball just inside the. Inside, I think, Victor Lindelof, inside Alex Tellez, the left back. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin looked like he was running through treacle. It looked like he was in slow motion. It was Chariots of Fire-esque, the speed that he went. I mean, that the Dominic Calvert-Lewin of last season is onto that and is a shot on goal and gets it past David Dayer, and we're 2-0 up. There's many theories that can be espoused about Calvert-Lewin in terms of, does he want to move? Is he just not fit? Is he just what it is? And that's for another day. But today, he just didn't provide any real. He tried, and there were times you're thinking we got behind him when he did get in that, and we thought, hey, hopefully this will gee him on. But he didn't really. And we need him. This is a simple fact. He's not scored, obviously, since his return from his injuries. He's not even taking penalties now. As Richarlison took them the other night, but we need to get a couple of goals out of him. They are going to be crucial. There are going to be games where he could make that difference. Just one header, or a cross that could make that massive difference, or one assist even from a header or something. So that's something that obviously does need to be worked on. Obviously 10 days now till the Leicester game, so there is time to get more mileage into his legs. He can rest, they can work with him at Finch Farm, and they can hopefully get him somewhere close to full fitness and some level of match sharpness that he desperately needs to have. Fabian Delph, as I said, needs to be wrapped in cryogenic storage or cotton wool, whatever you want to do, and just we need to get him performing like that for the next 8-9 games, because if we perform like that, then we can get out of this mess. And I was very sort of disconsolate after Wednesday, and I think most of Everton's fan base have been, in a way that I don't think when we were really fighting relegation in the 90s and 90, I think 94 and 1998, that we thought, maybe I was a bit young and naive, probably was, thinking that no, this isn't going to happen. Well, something will happen. This is Everton, it won't. Whereas now we're a bit older and a bit wiser, and or a lot older and not much wiser, and we're thinking actually maybe we're not going to be able to do this. But if that tension from Goodison today from the crowd, eventually obviously the support came in and we saw the fight and we saw that desire and the explosion at the end of the game, similar to Newcastle, I suppose, that just sort of release of all of that tension can happen again against Leicester a week on Wednesday. The game, the week at the end of the season where we have Watford away, I think on May the 11th, Brentford at home on the 15th, and then Palace at home on the 19th, I think, of May. That's those 3 games. We're hoping that obviously we will have been able to get a couple of results before then, to enable us to sort of just release the pressure valve a little bit. But it just shows those games, those 2 home games, the main home games, are absolutely crucial, because we can't rely on ourselves getting a point away from home at all. As I record this, Leeds have just beaten Watford by 3 goals still at Vicarage Road, pulling them further away. So it's really between us and Burnley. as to where who is going down. So today, massive result, particularly in the context of bouncing back after, without sounding too Partridgean, after Wednesday night. But it's one result in the same way that the Newcastle result was one, but it's given us a bit of a breathing space ahead of Burnley, even though obviously they are playing on Sunday against Norwich. Can Norwich do us a favour there at Carrow Road? Who knows? But it's made sure that we're not going into this 10-day break in the bottom three, and that is the crucial thing. The players obviously were out on their feet and euphoric today in the same way that they were out on their feet and completely disconsolate on Wednesday night, and that is something, that confidence can be carried forward over the course of the next 10 days to come into the Leicester game with, yes, a bit of trepidation, a bit of nerves, of course, but we now think, well, hang on, we've won our last 2 home games and kept clean sheets in both of them, and we're only losing, other than the Spurs game, our last 4 or 5 league games, the ones we've lost, and we've only lost them by the odd goal. The margins are that fine that we need to make sure we're starting to get on the right side of those margins now, rather than the wrong sides as we have been doing. So it's a more rosy picture in the garden. Still nowhere near out the woods. A long way to go. We still need another 3 wins, but at least. To ensure we can retain our Premier League status, but things are better than they were 72 hours ago, and we can at least rest easy now for 10 days and not worry about a game next weekend, because we haven't got one, with the FA Cup semi-finals being on, Crystal Palace of course being in that. So that is it. Always good to get your thoughts, as you know, at NMTVPod on Twitter, nmtvpod@gmail.com. Episode 96 will be here after the Leicester game on Wednesday the 20th of April, or when that will drop, who on earth knows, because the following morning the county cricket season starts at Emirates Old Trafford, so I shall be otherwise engaged in that, so we shall try and get the episode up the following evening as best as I can, but until then, come on you Blues.